Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda, and Steve, we're back this week with a few trade snippets, but first, another very positive GDT event.
Yeah, correct. GDT was almost all up. Strong performances from the powders, and butter continues to push towards the sky. So that's how it lined up. It looked like a set of cricket wickets to some extent, don't they? But just on the right-hand side, the background is important. Here we had firming markets, post the Christmas, New Year period in Europe. Would the market start to settle down? We had the prospects of spring coming on. Markets have just continued to surge there.
Sure. A lot of that to do with continued really muted growth or declines.
And probably some of the signals for growth getting worse.
Sure.
With
fertilizer.
You'd have to be worried about the energy costs and the availability, and Russia putting an embargo on ammonium exports. Things like that will just, fertilizer prices continue to go up. So prospects for growth are weaker. But the US has also surged. That milk's tightened up with demand coming on, and so everything heading up before this. So not a surprise that GDT took off further. I just thought I'd pull out a few things. Look, demand was quite solid when you look across the results for different products. I mean, at a high level, only AMF was a little bit weaker, but you didn't see that in the result really. But with the powders, China didn't really dominate. There was a bit of a lift in Southeast Asia. The thing I wanted to point out here are these charts, though, is that the people turned up and they stayed for a bit longer. Yeah, they stayed around, and compared to the last four events, it's just pushed that further. So while the demand stats up front weren't so strong, this was more sustained involvement. Same occurred for skim milk powder. Probably more so. I mean, there was this funny snippet that if the GDT was to achieve the pre-event futures price, which is the average of the two events, as a close before the event, it had to hit 6%. It did exactly that. So we haven't seen that convergence for a little while.
Yeah, sure.
And then some interesting other developments that we saw the prices flip back. So after 6 events where European powder achieved a better price for medium heat skim milk powder, that's flipped, and New Zealand's back to a small premium, as you see there. You can see I'm really struggling for interesting things out of this event. So over to trade. Let's leave that behind. So a lot of data came out in a rush early this week. We've got the EU 27 trade data, which is not absolutely complete. We have to put in the other side of UK data to make up, what's happened in the month. So, but in terms of EU, the story there is fairly clear that we've got worsening trade with less product available.
Sure. And
prices being as they've been, and this is December trade, so we haven't gone to the stellar heights of, what's been seen later. So this trade's probably written in Q3 when prices were way lower. Yep. So just think of what's coming.
But obviously, down all year, but even worse.
Getting worse.
In percentage terms in December.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I pulled out a few interesting things here about the cheese trade, and this just setting back a bit. And we'll do more of this. We'll get an annual trade insights coming up.
It's exciting.
Always exciting to add it up. We really nerd out on that stuff. So just as to what some of the interesting trends have been. UK's cheese to the UK, obviously that's down, and when we step back and look at really the post-Brexit effect, you've got to look at some longer periods. So the average tonnage in the last 9 months after that real weird period has fallen, and it's consistently down about 3%. So that's about a 36 to 40,000 tonne gap in their exports.
Sure.
But when you look at where they've gone in grown markets, so EU exporters are known for their resilience and just getting on with things. Here's a comparison of other markets. So this is MENA and the CIS, which is mostly in CIS going to Ukraine, which is in the news. But when you look at what's the gain in those aggregate markets over the same time, bingo, they've actually done better.
Yeah.
And if you think about what they've done in the US market since, getting back into that market, they're not in any strife with their cheese business.
No.
Staying with the UK, looking at the same sort of comparison there, lo and behold, the same difference.
Wow.
So they're exporting quite a bit of their trade to the EU, so they've just done a swap, and there's pretty much no impact on the UK cheese balance with that over that comparison. And then another little snippet, India's trade data came out, and that was quite interesting because it's surged with a bit of subsidy support and very high prices.
Yeah.
So, just going to local markets, however.
In the region.
In the region.
Yeah. But really hard to see a trend there. They just pop up when there's subsidies or really high prices, I guess is the story.
That's correct. Joe, chart of the week.
Well, chart of the week, you've been doing a bit of digging into what's going on in German retail, which is pretty interesting. We're obviously seeing these very strong prices, commodity prices flowing through to supply chains. You know, in the US, food is really part of that inflation story, huge rates of inflation there.
Yeah.
But interesting to see what German retailers are doing in this space, at least as far as butter is concerned.
Yeah, I think this is a bit of a, given the size of the German population, it's a bit of a bellwether for how much resistance we'll see at retail to the surging butter prices. So yeah, I've been tracking this for a few years. Some Nielsen data, which is they call it's panel data, consumer panel, which is showing, I think, a levelling off in retail prices, and in fact in the last data the private label prices were actually higher than branded product.
Yeah.
And here's a little reason why on the right hand side. So the Marken butter, that's private label, is pretty steady, and that's actually below the price that was scanned in the December data there. So they're not moving up anywhere, and that was pretty consistent across some retailers. I found that the private label stuff seems to be flat, as we're seeing wholesale prices surge. But here's an example of the branded product, supplier branded product from a Metro catalogue, a different retailer, not necessarily a discounter, showing a price for Irish butter into Germany at 1.29 euros. So which is, I hope it was packed in Q3, that butter, because that is actually below the current wholesale price, or the wholesale price is through Q4. So certainly you'd call that loss leader. But if I was a German consumer, you know, for all those watching this, I'm sure there are not many, watch the data on that.
The use by date. You think it's old butter?
Could be.
I might have found some hanging around.
Yeah, there wouldn't be much.
No.
All right. I think that's all from us. Thank you for watching. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.